We all get chances to take surveys, and yet very few of us actually take you up on that survey. But the 1,706 NFL players produced some eyebrow-raising highlights and lowlights for franchises across the NFLPA. Released a second annual report on clubs. What's most interesting is, like, look, they're going to pick apart the Chargers because they charge extra for daycare, even though they don't have daycare on site. And apparently the Chargers, when they travel, they have their equipment go with them instead of go separate, which is time consuming, and they have to wait on the tarmac. Like, yeah, these are first world problems to me. The top 5 in overall scores: the Dolphins, the Vikings, the Packers, the Eagles, and the Jaguars. The bottom 5 were the Steelers, the Patriots, the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Commanders. Whoa, the Chiefs? Huh. Yeah. The Steelers? So I understand that we can sit there and go, hey, Patrick Mahomes is the magic elixir. Magic elixir. The Chiefs, by the way, their ownership got like an F+. Did you guys see that? I didn't know there's an F+. Isn't it just F? It is F. Like, once you cross the F threshold, you're in an F. There's not like, oh, you got an F+. You know? 2 grades which shouldn't really exist are D- and F+. Those two can probably, and D+, really. Like, you're at a D, you're at a D. No, I'm a D+, Mom. Like, no, you're at a D.
I want to say Josh McDaniels got an F- when they ranked the coaches. F-.
Josh McDaniels. Oh, from the Raiders? Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking of Mike McDaniel, who, by the way, he got like a C+ or something. Like, he's beloved by the media, beloved by Hard Knocks. In real life, they're like, C+, which probably, again, we can draw lots of inferences. We can guess. What's the likely popular guess on this one? What do you think? Why Josh McDaniels doesn't rate out, Mike McDaniels doesn't rate out better. He gets all the shine. He gets all the attention. People love it. And they think he's playing to the cameras, I'm sure. Yes, Dan Byer.
I would also think that the offense probably loves Mike McDaniel more than the defensive players.
Fair enough.
So maybe you get an average grade there because...
It's a great point. Like, again, there's no why in these things. There's no why. But here's the biggest thing. You want to, here, circle up, huddle up. None of it matters. It just doesn't. No player looks at this and goes, well, I don't know. I can't go to the Chargers because of daycare issues. If they're a free agent, they leave because they weren't going to be compensated at the right level or they weren't going to be used in the right way. I mean, look, man, you're there. Do you have to live there? Sure. But the reality is, it's a job. It's a high-paying job. If you're a free agent, it's a job you have to take a look at. And you weigh a lot of factors. And I guarantee most of these factors don't actually matter. Nobody goes like, man, the food at the cafeteria stinks, so I'm not going there. Like, what is this, summer camp? Reality is the elite guys that take care of themselves, they're on their own program as far as eating anyway. That's reality. Yes, trainers matter. Coaches matter. Relationships matter. But so does how much you're going to get paid. Are they going to use me in a way in which I'll be able to play well? If I play well, I'm going to have good stats. If I have good stats, I'll make more money. I don't actually care. And if you don't believe me, one of the lowest rated teams is the Kansas City Chiefs, and they've won 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls. And you could say, hey, that's the magic of Mahomes, that he's the magic elixir. But, like, look, you got a beloved head coach. You got really good personnel. You got a great quarterback. You got a great fan base. That's the stuff that matters. It's actually a great, to me, this is as we look forward to the professionalization of college sports. Let me explain something which does not matter nearly as much as you've been told matters. Oh, man, facilities. If all things are equal and the coaching relationships are equal and the playing time is equal and the money is equal and the location is equal, can it then push you over the top? Sure. Sure, a facility can't hurt. But that's not why you get a guy. All facilities look great. All midweek, weekend facilities, all stadiums look great when there's people in them. Great. The Jacksonville Jaguars are a welcoming place. And I'm sure a lot of the Jacksonville Jaguars scoring so well was they hated Urban Meyer, right? So anything since Urban Meyer is like, wow, breath of fresh air the last 2 years. On the other hand, like, is that going to help them land free agents? Is that going to change their culture? They scored one of the highest in the league. How'd they play this year? How'd they back up a playoff season in which they won a game in one of the greatest comebacks in NFL history? It didn't. What affects winning is not how nice they are to your kids. Would you like them to be nice to your kids in the family room, waiting outside the stadium? Sure. Would you like to can you run a class organization, how you handle yourself? Absolutely. Absolutely. But it doesn't determine whether or not you win or lose. And some of that, believe it or not, is actually good. Yeah, it's actually good. This is going to, every athlete who played, I believe, in college, and most professionally, especially college, will know that this to be the fact. Like, you usually don't love your head coach. Or, it's a good cop, bad cop thing. Whether the assistant coaches are bad cop and the head coach is good cop, or usually the head coach is bad cop and the assistant coaches are good cop. Like, that's how it was for me. And you usually don't like the guy. You got to respect the guy, but you don't like the guy. And what it does is it builds up an us against the world. And the same thing happens when you don't have the best facilities. I mean, look, that's what triggered the great Indians run of Major League. Right? Remember, the worse it got, they put them on the plane with the props. They didn't have hot water in the locker room. How'd they play? Better and better and better. And, they had to trick Clue Haywood. They had to trick Clue Haywood, but the point is, and Clue Haywood took him yard how many times in the regular season? But the bigger point is, if it works for Major League and it works for the Kansas City Chiefs, it's going to work for everybody else. But you're trying to please everybody with things that don't matter. Would you like your organization to be like, hey, man, they do a real class job, handling the families with class, they do relocation well, they help take care of kids, they have, like, all these things. Yes, absolutely. You can be a first-class organization, but it does not in any way determine whether or not you're going to win or lose, or in any way determine whether or not you're going to hang on to most free agents. That's the reality to it. And you can say it's an outlier, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are bottom 5. And granted, they didn't have a great year, but they didn't have a great year because they weren't highly graded. They didn't have a great year because their quarterback play wasn't good. Their offensive coordinator wasn't good. They got rid of him. Then finally they found the right quarterback, and Mason Rudolph led them to the playoffs. That's it. That doesn't mean you go cold water in the hot tubs. That doesn't mean you go to a turboprop. That doesn't mean you have them ride the Greyhound to games. Okay? It's all within reason. But if you do backflips to make everything perfect, there's a certain amount of hunger needed. There's a certain coagulation. It's just a great word. Isn't coagulate just a great word? Does anybody, like, there's of the 10 best words in the English language, coagulation or coagulate is one of my 10 favorites.
It's impressive.
It's a good word.
What was the one that Lorena loves the word juxtapose?
Juxtaposition or juxtapose?
I like the word perhaps, just because it sounds great. Perhaps,
I like nefarious. Nefarious. Fiefdom, also a great word. Fiefdom, also a great word. But coagulate. I mean, like, how did I use it in a sentence? It was a really good sentence. I had a really good thing going.
Doesn't coagulate specifically have to do with blood?
It's used for blood, right? But
Okay.
why can't you use it for other things? You know what it is. What does something happen when it coagulates?
Oh, I have no idea. I just always heard
When
it.
your blood coagulates, what happens?
Thickens.
it thickens, it hardens, it sticks together. It becomes, that's what a scab is. That's coagulated blood. Now you can have it, in your blood vessels as well, right? And if you're a hemophilia, your blood does not coagulate. But to coagulate, it all the cells tighten together and then they form like a bond and a barrier. And that's what you're looking for with teams. It doesn't matter who the enemy is. Right? That's what coaches search for all week. Is they search for enemies. Hey, look what this guy said about you. Look what that reporter said about you. Look what they said about you on Fox Sports 1. Look what they said about you on Fox Sports 2. Can you believe what Dan Byer said about you? Can you believe what Cowherd said? What Dan Patrick said? They're looking for enemies. You can have enemies within. Guys, listen, I love you. I don't know why management decided to put you up in this crappy motel and to make you fly coach. But look, clearly they're not in. It's us against everybody. That coagulates a team. It brings you together. It tightens you. It hardens you. It's not the worst thing in the world. Not the worst thing in the world. And the easiest parallel I can give you is Texas football and Texas basketball. Now, Texas won a big game last night against Texas Tech, and my boy Brock Cunningham, who's like an Austin kid, is going to be the mayor down there. He went after a basketball, got kicked out of the game for using his shoulder to go after a ball. I don't think it was a dirty play, but it was a necessary play. It shows toughness. And Texas, for 20 years, they were down in football. Maybe 15 years they were down in football. And what did Texas have? They had the best of everything. They've been the best in NIL. Even before NIL, they got the best facilities, and they got new facilities to go with that. All these kids that they had been recruiting at the end of Mac Brown's era, they were still recruiting really well. And you go through the list of coaches, and they recruited really, really well. And what they would do is they'd have kids come to their camp as juniors, going to be seniors, and sometimes going to be sophomores, going to be juniors, and they just handpick the 25 best from the class from the state of Texas, and they'd get them, and they'd roll them out. And they couldn't win games. Do you know why? Because everybody thought they were soft. Everybody thought they were given everything. They were never told no. They were never hardened. They never had to coagulate. This stuff doesn't win football games. Wins you a PR battle. But anybody says like, well, free agents will, bull. Bull. You go where most guys go where they're going to make the most money. Then they go where they're going to win. Okay? Then they go where there's a position coach that they know or a head coach that they know that they can trust, that they can relate to. That's really it. That's the job. It's not, oh my gosh, we have the worst hot tubs or cold tubs in the league. That's not how it works. What were you going to say there, J-Stu?
Do you guys also get this? And they just started doing this, right? And I think it's good for us. It creates good content because there's always interesting things within. But and I think you're right. I don't know if it really matters in the grand scheme of things, but it strikes me as such a Gen Z thing. Like, we started worrying about workplace conditions in the last 10 to 20 years. We want to make sure that you're safe, that you're comfortable, that you enjoy your time and your coworkers. There was a time and place where when you got paid to go to do a job, you didn't need to enjoy it. In fact, it's a good chance you didn't enjoy it. Like, at some point it became a thing where if you show up to work, if you don't enjoy it, then it's a toxic work environment. This whole poll just kind of strikes me as a Gen Z thing. Dan?
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
What I think is interesting, to kind of go along with his, but a different branch. You mentioned the three worst teams. What stands out to me with the three worst teams, those are legacy ownerships in the National Football League. The Steelers, the Cardinals, the Chiefs. It's been the family business for the Bidwells, for the Hunt family, for the Rooney family, that they aren't willing to adapt or to change because of or whatever. But that really stood out to me, and it's not an old owner in terms of age, but I do think in terms of business and where it is, that it really, the three Fs were in for teams that have had football in their family for 50 to 100 years.
Yeah, I would also say that there's a couple other things that come to mind. What's interesting about the Chiefs and to a lesser extent the Steelers is they both won, and I don't know when the poll was taken. Right, there has to be some context. When was the poll taken? And are there any whys on some of the stuff? Because some of it's like you're just like, what about like the Dolphins owners got an A+, right? Stephen Ross, who by the way yesterday said he's looking to sell the team. And Stephen Ross has been widely criticized by social media because he's thrown events for Trump, right? Well, the players don't seem to care. So what is it about Stephen Ross as an owner that you like? I've been to their facility. It's fine. It's nice. I mean, part of what Miami has going for it is it's warm, right? It's warm. And that, I don't know if you've ever been in a place that's always warm, but generally, people are in much better moods. Whereas in Pittsburgh, you're just not. Oh, and of course, the Chargers are forever kind of chasing it, right? There's a level of unhappiness with one, the fact that they're not winning. Two, they were in a temporary facility. They're building like the nicest facility on earth. But I guarantee there's going to be more unhappiness. They'll be happy with the facility, with the training staff, with everything. Now they'll be unhappy with, oh my God, the cost of living just doubled. And oh yeah, by the way, if I'm going to stay where I used to live, where the old facility was, the traffic's going to be ridiculous. Like you can't please everybody. So, look, I get that it's great to come to a place of work where it's really nice. We, for example, at Fox Sports Radio have a beautiful brand new studio. Beautiful brand new studio. And for us, I do think it helps because, for example, in this studio, I can see Dan clearly. The old one, I couldn't see him at all. I can see Jay Stu. I can see Chris Perfett. I can see the fact that Dan has layers and layers of medication because he's fighting this thing. He's fighting this cold off. So it's cool. It's fun. It feels like people are investing in you. But does that keep you hungry? Does that make you win football games? There is no direct correlation. And we're in a bottom line business, and that's the bottom line.